Live from a living room in Orlando, welcome back to the Central Florida Sportscast. I'm Adam, and I'm joined as always by Eduardo. Hey, Eduardo, how's it going?
What up, Adam? We are here, Central Florida. We're back, and there's so much juicy stuff to talk about. We've got the Pride going to the finals. We've got the upcoming Orlando City playoff game. We got the Magic 6 in a row, and maybe better than everything, we don't have to get hurt by UCF because they didn't even play this week. We get to have a fully positive week here in Central Florida.
Yeah, it's been a great week here in Central Florida, and to top it all off, you and I got to go to an Orlando Magic win last Friday against the 76ers, and I'm sure we'll get into the Magic and their 6-game win streak at the time of recording before we go for the LA Double this week.
Man, I'm ready for the LA Double. As a Magic fan, there are many. There's like a laundry list of reasons to hate the Lakers, and having a former Magic player who I loved. When I was young, he was my favorite Magic player. JJ Redick, I was a JJ Redick fan. I had an all-white JJ Redick Magic jersey. I was like his biggest fan, and then he got traded, which isn't his fault. But to see him become the coach of the Lakers hurts me deeply, personally. So I'm excited to talk about all that.
And he has the Lakers playing pretty good ball. They've won their last 5 straight. So that is going to be a great matchup coming up this Thursday. We are going to kick it off, though, today with the Orlando Pride. Hang tight. The Orlando Pride, who this week took care of business. They won 3-2 against the Kansas City Current to head to the NWSL final. Eduardo, the scenes were electric in Interco Stadium.
My goodness. And we can talk about everything that happened that day, but that goal by Marta was not it is perhaps the best goal I've ever seen ever. It is so incredibly impressive that she shakes off not one defender, not 2 defenders, not 3 defenders, but 3 defenders and then the goalie.
Unreal.
Insane.
That was the scene that you would see in a soccer movie.
Yes.
That's the ultimate, Hollywood couldn't have filmed that better. And to top that off with a 3-2 victory, it just absolutely unreal. Orlando Pride, do you see us now? We see you. We also see Seb Hines, head coach of the Orlando Pride, just announced today NWSL Manager of the Year.
Hell, and he has to be. With the run that the Orlando Pride have been on this year, there couldn't have been anyone else. It was impossible for it to be anyone else. If the cards play out correctly, soccer in the United States will run through Orlando.
It has to. We have Orlando City playing as well as they are. We have the Orlando Pride 1 win against the Washington Spirit away from taking home not only the Supporter Shield this year, but also taking home the NWSL Cup. What more could they win? I mean, they already will have an invite to the Women's Club World Cup. So what more? Do we have to go prove that we're the best women's team in the world? Those are the next steps. This is the level we're talking about with the Pride.
And if they did, I don't think that, I think they'd have a pretty good shot at that. I think the Pride are that good.
I agree.
If they go on to this, their World Cup, and I think there's a good chance that the Pride are the best individual women's soccer team in the world.
Yep. We agree on that. And now I don't want to dampen the parade. There is one thing we need to discuss, which is, we wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't happening to our Pride, but the NWSL Cup is being played in Kansas City. Neutral site. It's how they handle the Super Bowl. I understand. It's the largest game for the largest women's league in the world. It was announced they were playing at a neutral site before the season started, so we were all aware this was happening. But seeing the scenes in Interco Stadium and how electric that crowd was, it kind of feels like robbery that the Pride aren't going to be able to play as the number 1 seed for a championship in front of their fans.
I think you have to be realistic about the state and like where that league is versus the NFL, because to try to do a 1-to-1 comparison to the NFL, I think it's not a fair comparison. And so if you're going to be like, hey, it's the Super Bowl's a neutral site. The NFL in the United States is the number one sports league that's watched every single week. Mm-hmm. Fans of those teams travel. They have the money to travel. The NWSL is a like up and coming league that is trying to garner more and more interest, and you don't garner that interest by shutting out the fans of the teams that are making it.
Mm-hmm. And how much of the Super Bowl crowd is not even fans, but neutral, corporate sponsors, celebrities.
Yeah, is Jay-Z going to be at the NWSL final, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
But, the opportunity that the NWSL, they need to look at this, because the opportunity to have this game in Orlando in front of the fans with the Black Swan Drinking Club on the wall cheering them on, that would be a sight to see. And, I'm going to watch and I'm going to root for the Pride, but it's going to be a really disappointing atmosphere on TV with a half-empty arena in Kansas City.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a plan past this year, but they really got, because come on. Come on, what are we doing here?
Imagine if the NBA Finals decided, you know what, we're going back to the bubble for the final.
Yeah, let's go play in Seattle.
Yeah, it just, it makes no sense to me. But you know what? Let's make that change. NWSL, let's bring this championship, the NWSL Cup, to the top seeds home so that we can have fans actually in attendance for them raising the trophy.
100%.
And, Pride, take care of business on Saturday. Go beat the Washington Spirit, and we have more silverware here in Orlando. Speaking of silverware in Orlando City is still on the quest for their first MLS Cup in club history. We have Atlanta in front of us. We spoke last week. Atlanta has not kept a clean sheet in 11 weeks. They did take the season series against Orlando. They won both games, but we're in Orlando. We're not playing in Atlanta. Right. We're in front of our home fans on the wall where the NWSL Championship should have been played the day before. But it is going to be a great soccer weekend here in the City Beautiful.
Well, and do you remember when they played? Because it's been very clear that Orlando City has been a second half team.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're in the first half, they were unfortunately pretty disappointing. People before the season started had Orlando as a team that they expected to get very far in the playoffs. They expected them as a playoff team, a potential championship team because of all the signings and the moves that they had made. And they came out of the gate not doing very well. And so I'm interested to see when they actually played Atlanta and when they played them here at home. Mm-hmm. Because if it was before that half, then you're playing a different team now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know the second Atlanta game was towards the latter half of the season, but if I'm remembering correctly, we were not playing key pieces in that match, and I believe that game was in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken.
Which is its own,
It's a circus.
Right, yeah.
You go, they hit the golden spike, they bring out Ludacris to sing the national anthem. It's, it's crazy and good for them. It fits the vibrancy of the city of Atlanta and what they're trying to build there. But it is a circus. So thankfully we get to play at home and we get to control the narrative there, and we just got to go take care of business. Speaking of business though, MLS has made a partnership deal with Funko.
Ooh.
Which is fun, and they have released their first 4-pack of Funko Pops. Now, I'm going to let you take a guess, Eduardo, about they're all from the same team. So you'll never guess who gets their first 4 Funko Pops for MLS.
I was excitedly looking it up, and then you said it's one team, and I was like, no.
Yeah. Big-headed Lionel Messi,
God.
Luis Suarez, Jordi Alba, and Sergio Busquets are all going to be Funko Pops. Exciting that MLS is growing, that we have these stars in the league to be able to grow the league, but, would have liked to see the better Florida team be represented here.
Yeah.
But these Funko Pops are going to need a new Funko coach, because Inter Miami fired Tata Martino today. And, he stepped away for personal reasons.
Because he personally didn't want to play with them anymore.
After a disappointing season. So, it's so interesting to see how much the league is growing and that you have a manager of Tata Martino's quality and the history he has of leading these clubs. And a lot of people thought, Messi, Martino, Suarez, it's plug and play. You're going to stick them in. They're going to go win a championship and run over this league. That's not what the MLS is anymore. No, you can't have your Zlatan Ibrahimovic's and your Landon Donovans coming and just dominating this league anymore, which is exciting to see.
It's good, and I think it's good for the league. I'm going to talk a lot about leagues and not being able to manage their teams a little bit later when we talk about the Magic. But Adam, as well as Orlando and Central Florida fans, we are both professional wrestling fans.
Yeah, we are.
We are big fans of professional wrestling. We like wrestling. And here's the problem with professional wrestling and these leagues and why they need to start learning lessons from each other. In professional wrestling, you can't just tell people that this is the star and then only push that person, because the fans will turn on that person and they will get what's called heat, and they will not, the fans won't like them. You have to be able to market new and upcoming talent correctly. You can't just keep pushing the same guy over and over again, because the fans are going to reject that. They're going to reject it, or if you continue to do it, they're just going to turn the TV off.
Yep.
And so if you keep shoving Messi down everybody's throats, even when he's already been eliminated from the playoffs, people are just going to turn the TV. What's the point?
Yeah.
Why would anyone who is not in Miami care?
Yeah. And they don't. And you see that on Blue Sky, on X. Everyone who's not a Miami fan celebrates when Miami and Messi get eliminated, because they see it as the adversary, which is great for the league as long as the league isn't pushing it.
Right.
In my personal opinion, baseball is more fun when the Yankees are good. Basketball is more fun when the Lakers are good. Football is more fun when it's good to have a villain.
Sure.
And as funny as it is to see those teams stumble at times, it's good to have that big market villain sometimes to root against, which is great. But when you start noticing that the league is playing favorites and they're starting to get all of the calls, instead of that becoming this fun rivalry, it starts to feel like it's a us versus the world kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%.
We have to overcome not only Miami, we have to overcome the entire league to get this done.
I agree.
So, MLS needs to start building stars. We have young American stars all over the place. USA just took down Jamaica last night. The future of soccer in the United States is extremely bright. We just need to start marketing these stars and having fans notice them from a young age. We have a better academy system going throughout MLS right now. I watch a lot of MLS Next Pro, which is the academies, and the level of play is gradually getting better every year. So these stars exist. You just have to know how to market them and push them to fans. Speaking of things getting pushed onto fans, so UCF Basketball,
sheesh, brother,
is getting pushed onto the city of Orlando in a way that I was not expecting. I fully embrace it. I love it. Push it more onto me, because the football program is certainly not being pushed onto me right now. It is not an enjoyable product to watch at the moment. I'm hoping that changes. But there are some big changes coming in Orlando, in Oviedo, on UCF's campus. It was announced yesterday that I forgot the name of the NIL program that they run. It's the Kingdom. The Kingdom NIL, which is the official name, image, and likeness for the UCF Knights. They are actually going to stop existing as of July 1st, 2025. And they're being turned over to the university, where the university is going to be doing revenue sharing for the college athletes directly from the University of Central Florida. This is kind of getting ahead of what everyone is expecting to be the results in college sports with NIL, where now instead of you and I donating to a third party that donates to the players, you and I can now donate to the school that's going to be paying the players.
You know what it's like? It's like when you go to a grocery store and they're like, "Do you want to like round up so that we can give money to like Kids Save the World or some charity?" And you're like, "Yeah, that sounds good." And then you like go back and you realize, "Wait a second.
How much did the grocery store get out of this?"
Well, right. And like the grocery store is just going to write a big check saying, "We are donating this." Like,
yeah.
And then you're like, "Wait a second. No, I donated that." Yeah. But I do think it's a better way to get one. It's a way to kind of continue with the times, right? The times we're moving in this direction, whether, the grumpy old grumps out there like it or not, this is the direction college sports is headed.
And if you want to succeed,
you have to get ahead of it.
You have to get ahead of it. You have to play ball. We're seeing this with Dabo Swinney in Clemson with the transfer portal. He has been very anti-transfer portal. He has had a hard time accepting that players have the agency to move around universities as they see fit. And his university has not really taken in transfers. And right now we're seeing them play at a level a lot lower than they've been playing at the last few years because they're not adapting. So you either adapt or your program is going to flounder.
Sure.
So I'm glad to see that UCF is getting ahead of this, that they are being proactive rather than reactive in terms of NIL money and donations to the university going to revenue sharing for the athletes, which is fantastic because it's going to be all athletes. So if you want to donate to the soccer program, the basketball program, the football program, every single athlete is going to get a share of that. The university is just going to have to decide what percentage is going to go to which sport.
Right.
And I'm sure that they'll come up with a system that is a lot more nuanced than you and I could come up with.
No, there's no way.
over the microphone. But I'm glad to see that athletes are going to actually be compensated for the money that they raise for the university.
100%. Well, and like UCF Basketball, I think they're headed in this really interesting direction because they're at a point right now. It's still pretty early in the season, but they are getting some recognition. People are starting to kind of see that they're not, they're not the UCF Basketball of old. They have some momentum. They are currently, as of right now, as of recording, they're in the second half of their basketball game against Tennessee Tech, which should be a win. They're currently 3-0. They're winning 56-47 right now as of half. And they're already receiving votes in the AP poll. And, that's for a UCF basketball team that has been pretty tough to watch the last few years. This is a perfect time to try to push this program out there because, look, I get people want UCF football to be the thing because they want Orlando to have football, but Orlando, and this might upset some people out there, but Orlando first and foremost has always been a basketball town. And so it makes sense for UCF to lean in to basketball. Like there's nothing that's saying that they can't have both, right?
Yeah.
They can absolutely have both. And clearly the move to the Big 12 was a step for them to really cement UCF football into the culture of Orlando. But they need to not forget about basketball.
And the Big 12 is a really good basketball conference. Last year they sent 8 teams to the NCAA tournament. Which is fantastic. Obviously, they sent their tournament champion and then 7 at-large bids, which is great, which means every single year, as long as UCF is competing in conference play, they have the opportunity to make the NCAA tournament. They have a lot of basketball talent here in Central Florida and in the state of Florida in general, and being able to build a fence around the area and say, oh no, we're keeping our in-state kids here at UCF to play basketball. Just looking at them getting some top 25 AP polls, I'm a Ken Palm nerd, and I love looking at Ken Palm ratings. And I'm looking at UCF right now, and they are currently ranked 56th in the country. They're sitting at 3-0. They have a net rating of plus 13. They are currently 71st in offensive efficiency with 110 per 100 possessions, and they are 53rd and defensive with 97.4 per 100 possessions. There's something in the water in Orlando in defense, Eduardo.
What is happening?
Listen.
It's not a bad thing, but I mean, yeah, it is. You know, you come to Orlando, and have you seen that? There's a Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett clip.
They talk about going to the cigar bar and how if you come down to Orlando, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yes, like you gotta go home. You gotta make sure you get a good night's sleep. You can't go to Orlando and like mess around anymore. Like you gotta get your sleep because those boys, they're gonna like hound you down.
Yep.
Well, and you know, we're gonna talk about. I'm gonna talk at length about the Magic here in a little bit, so I don't want to spoil any of that. But UCF, like. Montverde Academy is
right there.
Right there.
I passed it on my way here recording today.
It is right there. The NBA players of the next generation
are right here.
They're here. They're in Orlando. Orlando has always been a basketball town, and I think we as a city need to sort of kind of remember that. I think the Magic are doing a really good job at kind of reminding people that. And I think UCF basketball is on its way there as well. If they can continue this hot start, and let me tell you, it takes one, and I mean one, Cinderella run in the NCAA tournament to turn a program all the way, not even turn it around, but to like strap it to a rocket to the moon.
Oh, absolutely. Not to go too much into my personal life. So my alma mater is George Mason University in I'm going to get absolutely roasted for not remembering what year they made the Final Four. But they made a run to the Final Four. I was not in college at the time, everyone. I was probably in elementary school, so please don't roast me. But they made the run to the Final Four, and tickets became a hot commodity outside of D.C. to go to George Mason basketball games. My freshman year of college, Old Dominion University, which was the first school I attended, go Monarchs, beat VCU, the Rams, 3 times, and they made the Final Four that year. We unfortunately lost to Butler in the first round, who ended up knocking VCU out. Thank goodness. But look at what VCU basketball is now. And I don't think they were competing in the Colonial Athletic Association and were getting absolutely smoked. We absolutely owned them. And they had one Final Four run. And now all of a sudden, VCU has taken off. Their trajectory has completely changed for their program because of one Cinderella run. Mm-hmm. And you can't go on a Cinderella run if you're not in the tournament.
Yep.
So if UCF can position themselves every year to be a tournament staple, they have that opportunity to just absolutely take their program off to the next level. You know, I've been thinking about this when we were talking about UCF basketball. How cool would it be, especially the big game? We get UCF. We'll end up getting a Kansas every year. Throw that sucker at the Kia Center.
Brother. Wouldn't that be electric?
Why not?
Yeah.
You know, throw it at the Kia Center. You don't have to sell upper level tickets if you don't think you can muster it, but fill that lower bowl up for UCF. I mean, you're going to get Kansas fans.
Sure, of course.
They're going to be a majority of the fan base. Kansas is a long storied program. You don't quite have that history. But think of the revenue you generate opening the Kia Center up, filling up that lower bowl for an electric game to watch UCF beat the Kansas Jayhawks.
Well, and look, UCF is the largest public school in the nation. The largest public university in the nation, I should say. They have the people to fill that.
Yep. Bust the kids over.
Yeah, for sure. They have the people. They have enough alumni in Orlando. Like Orlando, people go to Orlando and then they
fall in love with the city.
Yeah, that's it. And then they stay. They don't leave. I'm going to have to edit this out.
That's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, I think it is absolutely would be a fantastic idea to open up the Kia Center for just maybe one big matchup a year. And it doesn't even have to be Kansas. Schedule Florida.
Sure.
Schedule Miami.
My God, I would love... Let's get Danny back on here.
Yeah,
we'll talk to Danny about it next week so I can be like, hey, Danny, I can't wait for UCF basketball to beat Florida.
Yeah, Florida in the Kia Center.
In the Kia Center.
Yeah, it would be absolutely electric. And UCF basketball actually, on top of playing in the Kia Center, with the Florida Gators, where we can rub it in Danny's face when UCF dominates that game. But the idea that UCF is becoming, we've always known it is here in Orlando, but it's becoming a national brand. We're in the Big 12. We're playing on ESPN every week. Granted, some of them are on ESPN Plus. We'll count those in terms of this podcast.
We'll take it.
We'll take what we can get.
Yeah.
UCF is actually going to be taking part this weekend in the Greenbrier tip-off. We have number 19 ranked Wisconsin this Saturday, which should be a great matchup. And whether we win or lose will depend on if we play the winner or loser of Pitt versus LSU. So not only do we have a top 20 matchup against Wisconsin coming up this weekend, but we're going to either be playing an SEC team or a decent ACC team in Pitt. So this is a really good measuring stick for UCF to compare themselves to some other conferences that we might not play that often to see where we stack up. Pitt doesn't dominate the ACC in basketball. The ACC is a very tough league. But we're kind of on the same level in terms of our basketball programs at the moment. So let's see how we stack up with our peers in the ACC.
Yeah, and I really hope UCF takes advantage of something like that. That's what it is. It's an opportunity. It is an opportunity to kind of put yourself to continue to put yourself on the map, because you already beat who did they beat? They beat who did they beat at the beginning of the season that shocked everybody?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. They beat Texas A&M earlier this season, who were currently ranked 23.
Yep. I believe they were ranked higher at the time that we beat them.
And then UCF brought them back down to earth. So if you can also get a win over Wisconsin, you've got a real shot at, one, making the tournament this year, and two, kind of establishing yourself in this new league in the Big 12, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned it before. Big 12 is a great basketball conference. You have a lot of storied programs in the Big 12. Houston, Kansas. These programs are fantastic. And UCF has the opportunity year in and year out to compete with them without that same history, but the ability to write a new history and establish yourself as a premier program in the Big 12. And again, with the Big 12, our schedule for Big 12 conference play starts on New Year's Eve against Texas Tech, which should be a very exciting game. I'm not sure if that game is in Lubbock or here in Orlando. But Eduardo, I just wanted to give you a little fun trivia about Texas Tech.
Let's hear it.
I don't know if they do this in basketball, but do you know what they do in football?
No.
As a tradition?
No.
They throw tortillas on the field.
What?
Yeah. I don't know if it's before kickoff or after a touchdown, but they throw tortillas on the field. And there is a clip of them playing Colorado from a week ago where coaches for Colorado were yelling at the fans, begging them to stop throwing tortillas at them.
Which is only going to make them throw more tortillas.
You fools! You've only amped up the tortilla throwing. So
they do play at Texas Tech.
Okay, so it is at Lubbock. So who knows? We might see some tortillas flying through the air.
They play. That's a tough couple games. So they go at Texas Tech, and then they host Kansas.
Oh, again, put that game in the Kia Center
for sure.
Come on now.
For sure. I mean, they've got a lot. I mean, they're really going out and finding these. I mean, obviously because they're not part of the Big 12, but they've got games. They've got games against Kansas. A week later, they play Arizona. Mm-hmm. They've got Houston, Iowa State. They play Kansas again, Cincinnati, Baylor. They're playing against some good programs. Yep. So you stack up a few wins against these teams.
Yep. In conference play,
absolutely,
against these Big 12 teams, you have a really good shot to have a good seed in the Big 12 tournament and make some noise there. If you win a couple of games in the Big 12 tournament and you've taken care of business through the season, you should be getting a bid.
100%.
So, and go dancing, which is what UCF's goal should be year in and year out. And We were dancing on Friday.
Oh my goodness. We're having such a good time. The Orlando Magic are having such a good time, and I'm so excited to talk about it. I have so many thoughts. I'm going to try really hard not to run on and be scatterbrained, but I just have so many thoughts about the Magic. So first, Orlando Magic have won 6 in a row. Whew. They have won 6 games in a row without Paolo Banchero, without their leading scorer, franchise player. They have won 6 in a row. That should be impressing every single person across the league. And they have really, truly done it because of their defense. Their defense, they have held their last 6 opponents to under 100 points. 4 of those opponents were under 90 points. The last time a team held their last 6 opponents to under 100 points were the Utah Jazz in 2018.
Oh, man.
It is insane what this team is doing without Paolo. Imagine when they get him, right? Imagine what this team looks like with Paolo Banchero added onto it. Because you don't take a team like that and then add a 25 to 27 point per game score and get worse.
Yeah.
You're only going to get better.
Yep. And, the way they've been doing it with their defense and with Franz having the offensive performances that he's had. I know people have been talking about having some concerns about how is Paolo going to fit in with the high usage, the way that Franz has been shooting, but the blueprint already exists. If Franz has an off night, you have Paolo there. If Paolo has an off night, you have Franz there. If they both have an off night, Anthony Black will put up 20 for you on a random night, which is...
Yeah, Adam, can I get a woo pig?
Woo pig. Which is such a great sight to see, but this team is doing it through grit. You told me we were sitting in the Kia Center, making a lot of noise, chirping with the Phillies fan, the 76ers fans behind us.
Yeah.
And you looked at me and you said, "Hey, Adam, you might not know this, but Orlando is the number 1 net rated 4th quarter team in the league."
Mm-hmm.
I said that's an interesting stat. We were we down at this point? If we weren't down, it was a really tight game.
Right.
And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Let's see if they can put the clamps on the 76ers." And they absolutely put the clamps down on the 76ers, and that defense looked absolutely incredible.
So, before that game, the Magic were they're still the number 1 rated, I believe, 4th quarter team. But before that game, they were an 18.6 differential, 8 whole points higher than the second best team in the 4th quarter. What they do, and you can see it, what they do, and Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce are right, they do is they grind you down. They work you down to the point where in the 4th quarter, you're out. You're gassed. You do not have the energy. And that is when they put on the clamps and they run you out of the Kia Center.
Yeah, and we saw it. There was an errant pass from Joel Embiid where he just looked even more disinterested than he had the rest of the game. Granted, he was making shots. He's a former MVP. That's Joel Embiid. He's going to do those things. Yeah. But he just seemed exhausted. Yeah. He wanted to get home, lay in the hotel bed, and just sleep because the Magic had worn him down.
Well, and the Magic have been doing this since last year. It has become their identity. But I think what people don't realize enough, especially about players, and I think that the problem with it, and I'm going to talk about this in just a sec, is that people are so used to having the same players be the best players for so long that they have forgotten that young players get better, right? Mm-hmm. Paolo Banchero is a wonderful example of this. Paolo Banchero came into the league and everybody was like, he's actually, I remember during the draft talk, they were like, he's the worst of the 3 because his game's too complete. Like, think about all of the potential with Jabari and Chet. Paolo's already a finished product. And it's like, who thinks like that?
Yeah.
Why would the 19-year-old not get better
Yeah.
as he continues to play the game of basketball? Like, why are we overthinking this? Why don't we take the guy that does it all and then be like, oh, he's probably going to get better? When they were doing the preseason rankings, every national media person had Orlando at 8th. I saw several people that had like Miami above Orlando. And then obviously they had the Sixers and the Bucks because they're like, you can never count out Giannis and you can never count out Embiid. And look where Orlando is now. They're number 3 in the East. And the only reason they're number 3 is because you have the Boston Celtics, who are probably going to win another championship this year. And then you have the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are having a literal historic start to the season.
Yeah. I can't remember the last time we've seen 15 and 16. It had to have been that Golden State team,
so
right?
It is. They now have the record for the second longest streak. By the first is still held by the 2017 Warriors. 16 Warriors, the one where it was like 23, 25 games, something like that.
Yeah, that ridiculous run that went on.
That's still the record. The Cleveland Cavaliers are now number 2.
Yeah, which
15 is now the number 2, which is insane. Mm-hmm. Huge props to the Cavaliers because what they're doing right now, and like I can be a little.
You could talk about the injuries,
sure,
the luck that they've had.
Yeah.
Their strength of schedule hasn't been particularly hard. They got the Magic without Banchero when we were still finding our identity.
Sure.
Yep.
But you play the games that are in front of you.
Correct. You can't control your schedule. No. You just play the games and you win them.
You play the games that are in front of you, and then good teams, they just find ways to win. They win. That's what they do. They beat bad teams. Good teams find ways to beat bad teams. Even if they're having a bad night, they just find ways to win. Yep. And right now everything is firing on all cylinders for the Cavs, and you have to just give them their props. Because, in our, so we watched the 76ers, and then last night the Magic went on a road trip, which is tough because the Magic haven't lost a home game since April of last year. I don't know if you saw the statistic that I sent, but the Magic are actually the only professional sports team to have not lost a home game since April.
That's insane.
They're not just the NBA, but professional sports team to have not lost a home game.
You don't come into the Kia Center and beat the Magic.
You don't. Yep. You don't. And so we went on a road trip, and we have not been very good on the road. It's a pretty like young team thing to sort of,
and it's tough to win on the road in the NBA.
It is 100%. And so we go to Phoenix. Now Phoenix, of course, they are missing Yusuf Nurkic, sure. They're missing Bradley Beal, and they're missing Kevin Durant. So obviously you're beating a pretty banged up Phoenix team. They're also on the second night of a back-to-back. But also, I don't feel bad about any of that.
Nope. How many times have we lost a game on the second night of a back-to-back?
Yes.
The win doesn't count any less.
Right.
You can only play your schedule.
100%. And so, I think the Magic are putting some teams on notice. One, that you can't just like rest players against the Magic anymore. You can't do that. You can't take a night off against the Magic. You can't.
Yeah.
You cannot do it. Two, I think people are starting to realize, we all as Magic fans knew that the Magic had depth this year, that they were a very deep team, but I think the NBA at large kind of didn't really understand. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and nobody really talked about this, what I'm about to talk about right now, but the Magic made one key move over the offseason. It was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But I don't know if that was the most significant move they made, because they made a couple other moves. They let go of Markelle Fultz, and they let go of Chuma Okeke. And the addition by subtraction there meant that you were going to have minutes for Anthony Black. You were going to have minutes for new rookie Tristan da Silva. You were going to have minutes for Jet Howard, to play minutes here or there. You were able to not just add players from free agency, but you were able to take the players that you have been developing and add them to your starting lineup. So while on paper it looks like the Magic only made one addition, there are 3 players, maybe even 4 if you count Goga, that are currently playing right now that were not part of the regular rotation in the playoffs last year.
Yep. And your core just got younger.
Yes.
Which is, an absolutely insane thing to say when you think about how young the Orlando Magic are. But with Anthony Black, with this being his de facto rookie season because his minutes were so sporadic last year, you now have a guard that is getting significant playing time. That is, 20, 21, if that. I'm not sure how old Anthony Black is. I know he played 1 year in college, maybe 19. Which is absolutely insane that he is playing as well as he is. And the mistakes he's making are mistakes that we see every young guard in the NBA make.
100%.
And as the game slows down for him and he starts making better passes and better reads on players cutting to the rim, he's just going to get better.
Well, and this is where you start to see the true mastery of the team that Jeff Weltman has put together here. Jeff Weltman and GM Anthony Parker have put together here, because Anthony Black's game fits almost perfectly with what Paolo and Franz do. And the fact that he worked so hard, and they had him work so hard to add a three-point shot to his game, turns him into a completely different kind of player, a player that 100% complements Paolo and Franz. And so then you envision a future lineup of like Paolo, Franz, Jalen, Anthony Black, and then insert center here. And you go, wow, this is like, we are, there's something here.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not going to be tomorrow. We're not going to see this lineup tomorrow, but that's going to probably be the lineup of the future. I don't see Anthony Black going anywhere because he fits the team and their identity so well. He had a great game last night against the Suns. I think he's going to continue to have great games, especially against guards that, you know, it was very clear last night that they wanted to feature the guard play because they immediately started running plays for Jalen Suggs.
Yep.
They immediately started running plays for Anthony Black. They saw Tyus Jones. They saw Devin Booker, and they're like, this is barbecue chicken.
Yep.
Like, we are going to like flame these guys every single time.
Make them defend.
Yes, 100%. And let me tell you something. For the past year and a half, there have been people crying down from the heavens to have us add Tyus Jones just over and over and over again. And every single time I think to myself and I go, the dude gets chopped and screwed on every single, like he is hunted every single time. He cannot play defense.
He doesn't fit the identity of this team.
No, he fits maybe something like what they're doing in Phoenix. There are teams, and it's not to say he's not a great basketball player. Obviously, I can't do what he does.
Yeah.
But on the Magic, he would not make sense. You know, we're starting to see these last 5 games a real glimpse at to what this team's like ceiling and potential could be. A defensive powerhouse where you don't know if the shot that you get up will go in 70% or any of time. Sure. And that's the kind of thing that you cannot make sacrifices for the short-term gain. You always have to be thinking about the long-term. And I think Tyus Jones would have been an overall negative asset, even though he might have been able to make a couple more threes, even though he might have been able to distribute the ball a little bit. I think having Anthony Black in there having Jalen Suggs learn a little bit more on ball, which I'll talk about him in a sec because I feel a little bad for him, and having Franz Wagner lead the offense a little bit, I think that's important. And don't even get me started on Franz Wagner. That man is going to be an all-star. An all-star, I say, Adam, in his last 5 games. Let me tell you what this man is doing. In his last 5 games, Franz Wagner is scoring 29.4 points a game. He is doing 6.2 rebounds, 6.4 assists, 1.4 steals, and about half a block. He is shooting about 46% from the field. He's making about 3 threes a game, shooting about 36%, 37%, so about league average. You know, he's shooting almost 90% from free throw. He's getting to the line about 6 times a game, 5.5, 6 times a game. I mean, he is, for like, in every sense of the way, the reason Orlando has been doing as well. It's as they have, they would not be able to do this without Franz. Obviously, they're playing great team defense. Obviously, they are shutting teams down, but you still need to score the basketball.
Yep.
And when you lose a 30-point per game scorer in Paolo Banchero, at least that's what he was doing before he went out with his injury, you need to fill that hole somewhere. And, you know, I said to you, we can't replace Paolo, but we can recreate him in the aggregate.
Yep.
I was wrong. You can replace Paolo. I'm not saying forever, but Franz Wagner has stepped up and filled the hole that Paolo left.
And he's shooting the basketball with so much confidence. You can see it. There was a 3-pointer against the Suns where he caught it, a beautiful pass. I want to say it was Anthony Black that dished it out, but I'm not 100% positive on that. And he stepped into a 3 and just absolutely drilled it. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, he is on one tonight.
Yeah.
He is absolutely on. He is feeling himself tonight, and The buckets are dropping. And you know what? He absolutely was, and they did. And having him step into that role of being the number one option in the short term while Paolo is out has to be such a huge confidence boost for him and for this team, given what the narrative, albeit I think the narrative was a little overblown, was after the playoff series, where everyone was questioning his ability to score the basketball after a few bad games. Having him come out and prove that he can go out and get buckets has been absolutely huge for this team.
You know, it is really unfortunate because over the off season, you know, he got that big max contract, and there were a lot of people thinking, "Well, we you know, the Magic overpaid for Franz Wagner." One, in the new CBA, that's not how that works. You pay money to retain your stars because if you lose them, you're losing an asset for nothing.
Yep.
So Franz Wagner is a max player in today's NBA. You know, if you are the Orlando Magic, you knew that from the jump. You always knew that Franz Wagner was going to get the max. Like there's no other way around it. He is too important to this team, regardless of how he stacks up against the rest of the NBA. All of that being said, he still had a career year last year. Literally the only thing that was bad about his year last year was his 3-point shot. Mm-hmm. And admittedly, it was a concern, but here we are, and he's back to shooting about league average, which is what he has done for the other 2 years of his career. He had a bad year. There's no going around that as far as shooting the basketball. But every other facet of his game
is still there.
Is there and was better last year. And it is once again better this year. So I think the idea of how the team looks when Paolo gets back is a really interesting thing to talk about because Jalen Suggs has had a pretty rough go of it. I think he's having a rough start to the year, and I think part of that has to do with he was already being asked, "We want you to run point this year. We want you to learn how to run the point guard."
Yep.
And then Paolo goes out with his injury.
Yep.
And they're like, "All right, we need you to run point guard.
But you
also now need to become one of the primary scorers on this team." And I think that might be a little too much for him all at one time. I'm not saying Jalen Suggs can't get there, because if there's one person on this team I believe to work their ass off to get to the place where they can get there, it's Jalen Suggs.
Oh, absolutely.
You can just see he wants it so bad, like night in and night out. There were a lot of people, like I saw this one Twitter thread, which I hate bringing up Twitter because Twitter just makes me angry every time I look at it. There was a Twitter thread that was talking about why does Franz get sometimes he gets hate for playing bad games, but there are people always making excuses for Jalen Suggs. And I was like, look, man, I don't agree with some of the things people are saying about Franz, but it is okay to expect your star player to play at a level that is a star player should be able to play.
Yeah.
All of that being said, you cannot deny that even when his shot isn't falling, Jalen Suggs is always affecting the game in some way. Mm-hmm. He is making a key defensive play. He is providing a key amount of energy somewhere. He's making a key shot in a key moment. He just always seems to find himself in these situations. That is why people give Jalen Suggs a break, because he just always seems, even when he's having a bad game, he seems to impact and make winning plays.
And he brings the crowd into the game.
Yeah.
He has the ability to, in the third or fourth quarter, put the clamps on a guy, tip a pass out of bounds, and he has this unreal ability. Him and Mo Wagner both have this unreal ability after a good play. When the opposing team calls a timeout, he just looks at the crowd and he gets them going. And, you know, you can never question his energy, which is such a vital thing to do, especially for a team that wants to build their identity on being a defensive team. You have to have that energy. You can't take a possession off on defense.
No.
They're just going to blow by you. So having a player like Jalen Suggs, partnering him with Anthony Black, which I have a couple of statistics here. Just speaking about this defensive team. So Anthony Black has been holding opponents to 39.1% field goal percentage and 25% 3-point percentage this season. Those are both first among all guards in the NBA.
Sheesh.
And this is his second year in the league. Him and Jalen Suggs as a guard duo is absolutely unreal. from a defensive standpoint, and I think once Paolo comes back and you have Paolo and Franz as the primary offensive options together, you're not asking Jalen to do too much. You're just telling him, hey, go find your buckets when you have the shots, but you don't have to force anything. We have guys that'll go out there and get the buckets. So if you don't have the shot, you don't need to chuck it up. I think it's going to be absolutely unreal to see their efficiency once this full lineup is back.
Right. Well, and I don't know if you saw I'm trying to look up the tweet right now, but there was a tweet by, I think it was Basketball Index, that showed the best point of attack defenders this season.
I did
and
see that.
And then the best wing defenders this season. And the two best point of attack defenders, 1 and 2, were Anthony Black and Jalen Suggs. And then the two best wing defenders this season were Contavious Caldwell-Pope and Franz Wagner.
Just for a second, listen, I know we're third in the East. We would love to be first in the East as Magic fans. But think about how blessed we are to watch 4 of the best defenders in the game out there running in the same lineup. It's just unreal.
Well, and imagine you do all the work and then suddenly Jonathan Isaac comes off the bench. You were rewarded with all your effort with Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah, can we speak about Jonathan Isaac a little bit and the absolute job he did on Joel Embiid?
My goodness.
Friday.
He was insane. And clearly he added all that weight in the offseason because they clearly want him to play the 5 more.
Yeah.
Jonathan Isaac, there's a world. And I think if we're going to ever talk about hypothetical trades, there is a world where this team trades away, not Jonathan Isaac, but Wendell Carter Jr. You can see the machinations. You see the vision of them going, we're going to trade away Wendell Carter Jr. We might even start Jonathan Isaac
at the 5,
and then have Goga back him up. And then you have a real, because Goga and Jonathan Isaac, obviously Goga can't do what Jonathan Isaac does on the perimeter and everything. But Goga, as far as protecting the rim and everything, there's a lot of overlapping skills there. So you can really see the vision of, oh yeah, I could see Goga and Jonathan Isaac kind of playing similar roles and kind of getting in the same rhythm and everything. You could even play them side by side.
Yep.
You could still have when Paolo goes out, you could have Goga come in and have Goga and Jonathan Isaac both be on there because you can have, rather than Jonathan Isaac sitting in the post, you could have them then come out to the perimeter. And then okay, fine. You made a crazy move and Jonathan Isaac guessed wrong and suddenly you're at the rim. Boom, now Goga is there.
Yep.
So I think that there's even a world where you could say that's kind of what I feel like that's where they're headed, because it does feel like, and this is another discussion that's running around on the internet, it does feel like, as far as the fit for the team, Wendell Carter Jr. is sort of, he feels like a relic of the past, right? He feels like this project the Magic made. The Magic made this project, and then they started to build up Wendell Carter Jr. Wendell Carter Jr. is a great player. Mm-hmm. He is not a bad player by any means. They just gave him a contract extension for the next few years. They obviously have a lot of faith in him. However, his fit with the team has never been 100%, right? He has never been exactly the center this team needs. But some nights he has been able to put the team on his back, make offensive performances, make defensive performances. So you really don't want to do wrong by him, but it just doesn't feel like he fits where this team is headed. Mm-hmm. And I have a similar feeling to him that I felt about Markelle Fultz, where I still, even to this day, believe in Markelle Fultz. I think there is a world where he is a quality NBA player, and if he ever gets his shot back again, he could destroy the league.
Yep.
I think he is that good at basketball, and I think him being able to do what he did for us when one of his shoulders basically just wasn't working shows, 1, how smart he is as a basketball player, and 2, how skilled he was. And I have a lot of feeling like that about Wendell. I love Wendell. I love his game. I think he's a great basketball player, but he's too injured. And even when he's on the court, it feels like he doesn't cover enough. You want your center, especially right now when you have figured out who your franchise players are, you want your center to be able to cover up their deficiencies and their weaknesses, or be able to cover up some of the mistakes.
Yep.
And Wendell Carter Jr. just can't do that. There are too many duplicative roles and too many duplicative skills between him and the rest of the team, and specifically Franz and Paolo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you absolutely need that rim protection that you get from a Goga Batadze or a Jonathan Isaac. I've always been a big Wendell Carter fan, partly because I wore sports glasses. So when I played baseball, so I was like, listen here, I saw him with the rec specs on, and I was like, let's go. Finally, I see myself on the court. But I have always felt the same way, that I just didn't see what the long-term plan was with him. He always kind of felt appreciate everything he's done for Orlando, but he has always kind of felt like the stopgap option at center for me, which is unfair because he has had great performances, but I don't see his fit long term with what this team wants to do. If this team was complacent being the 3 seed and making some noise in the playoff, but maybe not reaching that next level, absolutely. But I think that this team and this core has bigger ambitions than that. So I think eventually we're going to have some hard conversations as a fan base as to, okay, what is the solution at the 5?
Well, I mean, I hate that we're constantly comparing ourselves to the Boston Celtics, but they're the blueprint right now. Mm-hmm. You have to look at them and say, hey, what did they do? They had to make some hard choices. They got rid of Marcus Smart, who was the franchise for them. Yep. He was the heart and soul of their team for many years, but they made the difficult decision to kind of get rid of him. Not that I'm saying we're getting rid of Suggs over my dead body, but they had to make some difficult decisions for the betterment of their team, and they had to try things, right? The Celtics didn't just suddenly become good enough to win the NBA championship. No, they trialed and errored their way through many iterations and many builds. There have been lots of players that played on the Celtics while Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been there. They have had a revolving door of supporting cast until they found exactly the right ones that fit to bring them to a championship. And that is the direction Orlando needs to go. We know who the guys are now. Yep. Especially after the heater that Franz has been on. We know those are our guys. It's Paolo and Franz. It has always been Paolo and Franz. And it's going to be when Orlando finally wins its championship. You just have to make sure everybody else is right around them and is the correct fit around them. And I don't think Wendell Carter is that anymore, unfortunately. Now I think he's an incredible player, but you just have to think about what Orlando does on the defensive end. They've got some of the best wing defenders and some of the best perimeter defenders in the league. In fact, we just talked about it. They have the best perimeter defenders and best, as of right now, according to B-Ball Index and their LeBron, I think it's like D-LeBron or whatever, they're really high. Yeah. But as of right now, we have, 4 of them could be on the court all at the same time. Yep. But these are NBA players we're talking about here. And every once in a while, an NBA player is going to get past his defender. It's just what happens. You set a good screen, you have your defender guesses wrong, your defender goes for a steal, and then they suddenly, get past. You need somebody there, to kind of clean up when those things happen, because they're going to happen. Yep. And that is exactly what Goga has been doing these past 5 games. And I just don't think I don't think that's part of his game. And that's not to say he has a bad game, because he has a very good game. He's an incredible basketball player, but that's not his game, and that's not what Orlando needs.
No, absolutely. You need that rim protection for the off chance that somebody gets by the brick wall that we have built in our defensive end.
Right.
So, it will be interesting to see what the future holds with this revolving door of centers that we have with Wendell, Goga stepping in some nights, Mo getting minutes. I'm just going to be interested to see what direction we go at addressing this. We have a couple of draft picks in the first round this year. Do we look at centers in the draft, or is there a free agent center on the horizon that we look at? It'll be interesting to see what direction they go, but it's important to be patient. Like you said, the Boston Celtics went through many iterations before they found the right balance, and I like to think that we're on iteration 1.5.
Yeah. We're so early, and which is really encouraging that we are so early. And as of right now, we're number 3 in the East. Like, it is a great, great, great place to be. And I know we're 3 in the East, but do not try to rush this.
Yeah.
Let it take its time. Let it take its course. Let these people develop. Let them have growing pains. Imagine if we took Franz's one bad season from 3 at face value and made like some like crazy trade to trade him away.
Yeah.
Traded him away for some of the guys that people out there wanted, like Anthony Simons or Tyus Jones, or, even for like another like borderline star. Like, I don't think they would have fit the same way that Franz Wagner fits this team. I don't think they would have been able to carry the team the way that Franz Wagner has carried this team. So keep the patience going, and let's continue looking towards the future, like our game against the Clippers tomorrow, at the time of recording this. So you'll probably end up listening to this on the day that we're playing the Clippers.
And hopefully, if you don't listen to it before we play the Clippers and you're listening the next morning, we will have gotten our 7th win in a row.
Oh my God.
As we take care of business in the Intuit Dome.
Now, Adam, do you know who the leading scorer for the Clippers is this year?
Oh man.
I'll give you a few guesses, but it's not going to be who you expect.
Okay, let me pull up the roster real quick.
Yeah.
Just so I can take a couple of informed guesses. Because I guarantee you my first guess was going to be a player that probably doesn't play on the Clippers anymore. Chris Paul. So this makes for exciting podcasting. Web pages loading makes for okay, so I'm guessing it's not Mo Bamba's. I am going to guess Kai Jones.
It is not Kai Jones.
Is it? Is it Bones?
It is not. It is not Bones Highland.
Last guess, I'm going to go Mo Bamba.
It is not Mo Bamba. It is Norman Powell.
Oh my goodness.
The Clippers have not. Norman Powell has changed his game this year. They showed like the biggest like point total differences between last year and this year as far as points per game in the NBA. And Norman Powell was along a list of like 4 rookies. It's like 4 rookies and then Norman Powell. Like, he has really, really elevated his game while they've been missing Kawhi. Mm-hmm. And so he has been like their driving force this season. Let me read you a tweet that we just got. Hang on just a second. The Los Angeles Clippers have ruled out Norman Powell tomorrow versus the Orlando Magic due to a hamstring injury.
Listen, I'll take it.
Look, I can't help it that God's an Orlando Magic fan.
We can only play the team that they throw out there.
That's right. And so
what does that injury report look like now? It has to be Kawhi, Norman Powell.
I don't even know if Kawhi is playing. Has Kawhi played this season?
I don't know that he has. So, I mean, I think the injury report for the Clippers, I think they're going to be down Kawhi. They're going to be down Norman Powell.
Yeah, he's out indefinitely as of right now.
Yeah, I just unfortunate for Clippers fans, but we will absolutely take it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like there's just similar to what it is. It's the Clippers or the Sixers of the West. Not as far as the team goes, but as far as like you can't just make a team of constantly injured players and expect them to get regular season wins.
It's the same roster construction. I mean, you look at what Paul George has done this season and how bad he's looked. Yeah. It's the same kind of roster philosophy that it's interesting, and I'm sure part of the plan was to have some really good names for the Clippers to put on the back of the jerseys because there's going to be a lot of media attention on them because of the new stadium.
Right.
But I don't really envision them being any kind of real threat in the West.
No, they're 8-7, which is not a bad record. Obviously, they're only 1 game behind where the Magic are. Like, they are in like a decent spot. If they were in the East, they would be, in 4th or 5th place. However, I still just don't feel like the West is always going to be really competitive. It has been for as long as I can remember. It's not necessarily the middle that is more competitive. It's the very bottom. The bottom teams in the West are always way more competitive than the bottom teams in the East.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the West gets its
It's the depth.
It's the depth.
You don't get the Wizards or the
Pistons. Although, honestly, there is not a team in the East right now besides the Wizards that is an easy out.
No.
There is not
the 76ers. I know it's probably oversaid, but they are a really good 2-win team.
Yeah.
Like they're no slouches. They're going to play you hard. And Joel Embiid is just coming back from injury, so we'll see what they become. But outside of the Wizards, there's not really a tank for flag team that's really making themselves known so far.
No, and I think that is a good thing. I think the NBA has an opportunity here. I think they have an opportunity because there's more league parity than there ever has been. And you have a really great opportunity to, one, make some new stars, and two, showcase teams that people don't get to see. Unfortunately, the NBA is not interested in that. So just last week, a game that was supposed to be on national TV on TNT between the Knicks and the Magic that will most likely end up deciding who goes out of Group A into the East into the in-season tournament was flexed out for a game that will be played against the Grizzlies and the Mavericks on the same day for in-season tournament, results. Do you know the record that the Grizzlies and Mavericks have in the in-season tournament?
I know they were 0-1 last time I checked.
They are still 0-1.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've played. Honestly, I don't know. But both the Knicks and the Magic have not lost.
Yeah, I watched the end, or was listening to the end of the Knicks game as we were driving home from the Magic game on Friday, where it looked like the Nets were going to take it, and the Knicks came back and won it. So that makes the decision to flex the Magic off of that game with the Knicks off of TNT even more baffling.
Well, it's like to decide Group A. It is in Madison Square Garden. It has all the makings of like a really great game of the season, playoff atmosphere. And it's been flexed up because they saw Paolo go down and they're like, there's no point. And this is my issue with the NBA at large. I think the NBA has forgotten how to make stars. They don't know how to do it anymore because they have been resting on the same stars to carry the NBA for the past 2 decades. LeBron James has been playing for 2 decades. They have used him as their cash cow, and the cash is finally starting to run out because you're starting to finally see the cracks in this. Joel Embiid does not have the longevity of some of these guys that have. You've got Kevin Durant, you have Steph Curry, and you have LeBron James. Those are the guys that have been doing this for a really long time that continue to play at a really high level. But all of the other stars of age are starting to show their age. They're starting to get up there. Russell Westbrook, not the player he used to be. Joel Embiid, not the player he used to be. And Joel Embiid's not even old, but he's more so going by like the regular timeline of what NBA stars have traditionally gone by. You don't have these incredibly super longevity like players. As we watch the Cleveland Cavaliers, their undefeated streak come to an end to the Boston Celtics. That's crazy. And so the NBA has a really bad problem where they do not know how to market small teams. They are so focused in the short term and what we talked about earlier about like the Dallas Cowboys. I'm like the NBA, it is a good thing that the Knicks are good right now. It is a good thing that the Lakers are good. It is a good thing that these big market teams, the Celtics, are good. However, they cannot be the only story.
Correct.
You cannot have Stephen A. Smith have 45 minutes about whether or not LeBron James is going to blow his nose. Like you cannot have these segments and those be the only segments you talk about at the NBA, because then you're not talking about the NBA. Instead, you're not marketing a league. You're marketing the Harlem Globetrotters, where there are a handful of teams that are the Globetrotters and everyone else are the Generals.
Yep. Going back to our wrestling talk from earlier.
Yeah, please.
You can't just have one superstar.
No.
You can't have one baby face that you push and all of your heels are these bottom card guys that nobody really cares about. You need to have multiple. If you want to run a really good wrestling promotion, you have to have multiple baby faces that people can cheer for.
Yeah.
Multiple stars that people are interested in. and then a slew of other teams that people know enough about. And then on top of that, you have to have that new guy that's always threatening. And you have to be able to market that person as,
right.
Are they going to be the one to dethrone the King LeBron?
Sure.
Who's going to be the one to dethrone the King? There's an ad on ESPN where it's Ovechkin and Crosby. So basically the old guard of hockey. Ovechkin's 39, just went out with injury, which he's chasing Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record. Sidney Crosby, one of the greatest to ever play the game as well. And they're passing the puck, and then you hear a voice say, "Hey, do you mind if I jump in?" And it's Connor McDavid from the Oilers, who's a younger superstar. And then you have another young superstar going, "Hey, I'm in too." And basically the whole message of the ad is, hey, these are the new faces of hockey.
Yeah.
You have these players. The NBA is not doing anything with that outside of Victor Wembanyama.
Oh, man, I want to give you here's my wrestling take about Victor Wembanyama.
I would love to hear it.
Victor Wembanyama is the Roman Reigns of the NBA. And I don't mean current Roman Reigns.
I mean post-Shield?
I am talking post-Shield. I am talking when every week they were trying to get Roman Reigns over and the crowd hated him. I'm talking about when he won the Royal Rumble and The Rock came out and he raised his hand. And at the time, The Rock was beloved and everybody booed. That is how I feel about Victor Wembanyama right now. Because if you look at the rankings of like national games, the Magic had 9. They now have 8. They have the least number of national games of any postseason team from last year. The least. The San Antonio Spurs, who were awful last year, have 21 nationally televised games this year. That's ridiculous.
It's unreal.
It's ridiculous. When I say make new stars, here's the problem, and I'm going to do it again. They're trying to replace LeBron, but you can't replace LeBron.
Where do you got to get him then?
You got to recreate him in the aggregate. And that's what I mean. They're trying to fill LeBron's shoes with one person, and you cannot do that. LeBron is LeBron. He is literally perhaps the best basketball player of all time. I think we're past the point of saying like Michael Jordan is definitive. I don't think it's definitive anymore. I think it's a real conversation. If you want to finish that conversation by telling me you still think Michael Jordan is the best, I think that's okay. But I think there's a conversation. I think we are at the point now where it is going to be a debate for the rest of time. And depending on when you grew up is going to be who you say. And that's kind of how it's going to go. Mm-hmm. You can't just make another one of those guys. You can't just have another guy be. It doesn't work that way.
And think about basketball at the height of when Michael Jordan was playing. Michael Jordan was the star of the NBA.
Right.
But there were other stars that they were pushing at the same time.
Yes.
You had a lot of really good Utah Jazz teams around that time. You had a lot of, the Celtics started making some noise.
You got the Suns. You got Charles Barkley
and the Suns. So you had these other teams with stars that they were pushing. And although Michael Jordan, growing up, was the coolest guy in the entire world, I loved the Bulls in the 90s because of Michael Jordan. Obviously not a fan of the Bulls, but Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. A kid growing up in Indiana right now, outside of seeing the clips of LeBron, he wants to see the Pacers players be featured as stars. Yes. Kids in Orlando want to see Paolo get the roses he deserves.
Right.
And if you want to build this longevity of, I know Adam Silver's talking about viewership is down.
Yeah.
If you feed people the same product over and over and over again, people are going to stop watching. What needs to happen is you need to find a way to feature all of your teams and make them all unique.
Yes.
And no, not every team has a star. I don't expect you to stick the Wizards on 10 to 11 nationally televised games a year. But the teams that do have players that are starting to make some noise, starting to break out, you need to feature them equally, or feature them more often and just take a couple of games away from the Lakers. Take a couple of games away from the Spurs that have 21 games. I mean, the fact that they have 13 more games on national TV than the Orlando Magic is insane to me.
The Lakers did not have a good season last season.
No,
by all accounts, they had a pretty bad season. Who do you think is the number one team as far as nationally televised games?
It has to be the Lakers.
It is the Lakers with 39 games. They have 39 nationally televised games.
Do you have the list in front of you? Is it Lakers, Celtics, Spurs?
Lakers, Warriors, Celtics, Knicks.
Oh, Knicks. Okay, that makes sense.
And then you've got the Mavs. The Spurs are a little farther down, but comparatively, like to the Magic or even someone like the Kings who had a great run last year, the Heat have 13 games.
Yep.
And the Magic only have 9. That's insane.
And, I mean, think about when the Kings went on their run a few years ago. And they didn't necessarily have household names as stars at the time. With the whole Light the Beam when that first started showing up. That became appointment watch television. And there wasn't a LeBron there. No. There wasn't a Victor Wembanyama. But you had an entire city engaged. And people show up for nationally televised games.
Right.
You want to be able to reach into these smaller markets. These Orlandos that once the soccer season ends, we have UCF and we have the Solar Bears. There is a lot happening, but in terms of like professional sports, Orlando Magic is primary number one.
Yeah.
Why are you not engaged? Why is the city not engaged more?
No.
Could be because you only put us on TV every once in a while. You don't treat our all-star like he's an all-star.
Right.
So we see it, but the rest of the country doesn't know.
Well, and it's frustrating. And, you know, watching this on TV, because we have the Celtics Cleveland game on right now. It's in its post game right now. Can I give another hot take?
I would love to hear a hot take.
I think inside the NBA, the TNT program with Chuck and Shaq and Ernie and all them, I think they're part of the problem. I think having your most popular NBA TV show be a group of guys who very clearly doesn't watch the product, does not care about anyone except for a handful of teams, and you know, even when you do bring up those teams, they just kind of make fun of them, and then are just like, all right, well, they're just going to lose to the good team. Like they just,
I think it's bad for the sport, and I think it comes from the top down. I think TNT is more concerned about making the dollar right now.
Yeah.
About saying, okay, we're going to stick the Lakers on TV because people watch the Lakers.
Right.
So the inside the NBA crew is going to talk about the Lakers, and then they're going to dismiss whoever the Lakers are playing. And then when the Lakers lose, inevitably they'll talk about how, you know, it was a hard fought match and this team doesn't get the props they deserve, but they hit a few shots tonight. But what's not happening is you're not engaging all of the fan bases.
Yeah.
You're making viral clips that take off on TikTok, they take off on X, and you know, it's fun to watch, but you're not creating smart basketball fans.
Well, you're not creating, like, you're creating these viral clips, right? But like the problem with viral clips is by tomorrow they're gone.
Yeah, you have the next one.
You're not creating lasting memories or like inflection points for these fans to sort of latch on to, and creating like core memories for them so that they can continue and be like, oh man, I remember when they were talking about my team and I felt so good. Like the Magic are on a 6-game win streak, and do you know how much searching I have to do to find national media people talking about it? It is insane to me.
I listened to 3 different national basketball podcasts on my way over to record tonight. Do you know how many times the Magic were mentioned?
I'm going to guess once.
0.
I'm going to guess 0 instead.
0 times.
That's insane.
I jotted this in my memory. I kind of made sure I remember this. The Miami Heat were mentioned 7 times between the 3 podcasts.
For winning 1 game.
Yes. And, you know, it's insane to me because you have these small, you know, this is just irony. We were talking about the Spurs and who shows up on national television as we're recording this, but the San Antonio Spurs taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, it's just unreal, and I think you've hit it spot on. You need to create stars, But it can't just be one star.
No.
You need to have stars across the league that people are embracing.
You need to feature more stars and like let it happen organically. That's the real big issue with these large and the WWE worked the same way. They were trying to force things. You have to just put your stars out there, feature your stars, and then let the fans organically
decide who the star is.
Yeah, right. Like, do you know what Orlando did to kind of put themselves more on the map than anything else? They found an organic way to connect with their fans by bringing back a song from the beginning of their tenure in this league. It was from their opening day. They had this crazy, wacky theme song that has now taken over. If you go on Twitter or on TikTok after a game, that song is everywhere. You had last year teams were talking, like opposing teams kept being like, damn, I don't want to hear this damn song. Like, It became a movement, and that all happened that wasn't the NBA being like, you have to do this song. That was the Magic being like, hey, people really like this. The fans were like, hey, we really like this. And then they just leaned into it. That's how you got to do it. You have to meet the fans where they are. You can't just try to direct the fans somewhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to give huge props out to whoever in that front office or in the marketing team came up with the whole playing the song. What a fantastic idea that has really got the fan base rallied around something and gave us a crying point, something to call out, when the game is almost over and the Kia Center is chanting, play the song. I mean, it's electric. It really is. And it's kind of like, in college basketball when the student section like pulls their keys out and shakes it at the opposing team. When you, as an opposing team, when you start hearing Magic fans chant, play the song, you're done. Just go sit on the bench, go home. It's over. We already won.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more in terms of building stars. And I think there's a lot of work to be done here in Orlando as well in terms of getting this team out there. We spoke a little bit about Orlando City last week and the Magnets and how effective we thought that was. But on Friday, I was walking through downtown Orlando to get to the Kia Center, and I did not see enough Magic merch out. I didn't see any flags out in front of the restaurants and bars. And, I think there has to be, we have to rewire how we think about the Magic, especially around Central Florida, where it needs to be everywhere.
Yeah.
We have a good enough team where the Magic should be prominently featured. Obviously, we're huge sports fans. And I remember having to beg friends to go with me to the Magic games. And it was back when the team wasn't very good. And I felt bad. I was like, oh man, I'm dragging these people to watch this bad basketball product. But now we have such a good team that, we should be seeing people in jerseys and holding flags and cheering anywhere you go. I shouldn't have to go to a sports bar and ask the people to turn the Magic game on. It should just be on.
I agree. And there are lots of like fingers you can point at. One, it's like the community that like, unfortunately the product has just been a really tough watch for the past like decade. So like you've had a lot of support sort of like die out because there was a lot of fervor, especially after the like 2009 finals run and then Dwight Howard, but then everything that happened after that really kind of killed the enthusiasm for the team. And then you have the team itself that does a really poor job of marketing itself to Orlando as a city and instead focuses their marketing on tourism and people like coming to watch games, which is like okay for like a sector, but you really need to garner a hometown fan base. And then it's the city's job to also rally around that because, our tax dollars are going to fund renovations to the Amway Center. Our tax dollars are going to fund renovations to the Citrus Bowl. So we have an interest in these things succeeding. So we should be involved with them. And so it's like a whole thing. And then as we're talking about this, I turn to look at this damn San Antonio Spurs game, and guess who's not playing? Look on the court. Who's not there? It's the super tall guy on the bench. That's a hint.
I see a very distinct lack of tall Frenchmen.
There's a tall Frenchman in plain clothes sitting on the bench who is not even playing. So now instead we get this TNT game where the Thunder are just going to obliterate the Spurs. And then, like, what's the point? Like, we can't even be consistent.
Yeah.
This is why you don't do this. This is why you try to feature more teams so that you get more of a chance to have good games. Now I get to watch old-ass Chris Paul throw the ball away instead of watching a good game.
Oh, Oh, thank goodness they have featured that game on national television. It's just sloppy basketball.
Just awful, awful, awful.
Yeah, and we have so many, there are so many things that the city can do to also activate with the team. Leaving the Kia Center, I kind of noted how many buildings downtown were lit up at night with like different colors. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be really cool if you walked out of Kia Center after a Magic win and they were all lit up blue and white?
For sure.
I mean, that can't be that hard. I know that a lot of those LEDs change colors. I've seen them do it for Orlando City before in the playoffs. I know that they can do it. So it's just about somebody from the team or somebody from the community reaching out and going, hey, can we do this? Like, why not?
Yeah, I feel like there's a failure of understanding with how to connect to the city that the Magic just haven't gotten in quite some time. And I feel like the success of the team is heading the team in the right direction as far as like groundswell movement and as far as people wanting to have the support. But the team has to also want to like give that support out. There need to be more events. There need to be more Magic things happening in the city. There need to be more. It just needs more. We need more of everything.
Yep, absolutely.
And until we get that, this team isn't really going to reach the next level as far as like fandom and viewership and all that. The Magic are pretty decent as far as viewership and attendance in their games are.
Yep. But
they could be great. Like Orlando is one of the fastest growing markets in the country.
Yep. There
are more people moving to Orlando than ever before. I promise you, we're full
popping
here.
Off. I sit in the traffic. Yeah.
I know there are so many people here, and they could all be Magic fans if we had incentives. If there was a day where we all like got a Magic shirt for $5 and then suddenly they were everywhere and everybody was wearing their Magic shirts.
Yep.
If you had a real true groundswell movement that was taking Orlando by storm. And it feels like the Magic just haven't figured out how to do that yet, but it feels so simple to me.
Yeah. No, and there has to be something that's preventing that we can't think of, but coming at it from a fan perspective, I'm just tired of seeing the Kia Center filled up with Knicks fans and Celtics fans.
Yes.
And if we could create that next groundswell of Magic fans so that when we go to the Kia Center, we don't have to listen to opposing fans chant for their teams. It was just going to be such a nice feeling.
Well, and I'll say, when we went to that, I called them the Phillies too. We went to that 76ers game. When the 76ers went on a run where they were like up a little bit for a while there, you heard the Sixers fans.
Oh, yeah.
There were quite a few of them.
Most of them in Eagles jerseys.
There were people in the guy in the Jalen Hurts jersey. Yeah. He's like, I don't have any Sixers stuff, but I still got to rep Philly.
He just wore a Wawa t-shirt.
Guy's like, he just came in with like a cheesesteak.
Yeah. Hey, I'm from Philly. Hey, this proves it to you.
You saw them there, but you know what a good way to shut all those people up was?
Beat the hell out of them.
To just destroy them on the basketball court. Yep. And so the team proper is doing its job. I think the community is doing its job by showing up to the games. I think the team like leadership is who is dropping the ball right now.
No, I agree.
And like needs to find ways to get Magic fans to games more. The fast break thing was like a good way. The tickets that we got, even like, we had gotten some free ones from Six Man Show, so shout out to those guys.
Yeah, shout out.
But they were doing also another sale where you could like pay $30 and you could like get like a random seat. Like all of those things are good, but like if you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known about that.
Yeah, I just happened to check my email like a few hours before that offer expired and was like, oh, wow, that's a really good offer. Maybe the team should be posting about it. I have the Magic app on my phone. Yeah. How come I didn't get a push notification telling me about this? Like, it's the little things. It's really engaging with the fans so people know, like, I should not experience a Magic game day where I don't know it's a Magic game day.
Well, like we have, obviously you can't do this one-to-one because the logistics of it aren't the same, but like we go to Orlando City games, and at Orlando City games, we go to a parking lot, we tailgate the entire time beforehand. We're like getting excited, we're having fun, we're with Orlando City fans. City fans, they'll share stuff with each other. If there are people that are making food or there are people that are like making drinks, all that, everybody shares everything with each other. You like make new friends, you create community, and then you all go to the game together.
Yep.
And like if Orlando could harness something like that in some way, in any way, they could really find themselves in like, because it's now's the time.
Oh yeah.
The team is like, the tagline is the kingdom on the rise, right? Orlando is a kingdom on the rise. And now is the time for you to create something like that. Not when they're already popular, because that'll be too late.
Yeah.
We need it to happen now. We need to create the community now. We need to get that moving now so that in the future, we're heading that direction. Who knows? Maybe Adam and I will talk here and we're going to create an Orlando Magic tailgate and we're going to create a whole thing. Who knows?
Hey, don't threaten me with a good time.
I'm saying, man, if we could figure out the logistics of that, if any of you are interested in Orlando Magic tailgate, let us know, because that sounds
dope.
Sick. It sounds like so much fun.
Catch me with a chef hat on, working the asada grill, because
hell yeah,
we're going to be grilling it up.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Central Florida Sportscast. If you want to follow the show, you can do so. We're on Twitter. Or X, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it Twitter from now on. I'm never going to do this like, is it Twitter? Is it X thing? This is the only time. At CF Sportscast. Email the show, cfsportcast@gmail.com. Have anything you want to talk about, we'll read your email on the show. We really appreciate everybody who's like listened so far and followed us on Twitter. We want to continue to try to do these episodes and try to really bring the community of Central Florida kind of together and rallying behind this team, which is why we spent so much time talking today about perception of the media, as well as kind of the city proper, and what they can do to kind of bring the Magic and really create a true hometown feeling for the team. But I think that's going to do it.
Hey, Eduardo.
Yeah.
You got any... I'm just going to spring a segment on you real quick.
Hit me.
What's your Orlando recommendation of the week?
Sheesh. I got you.
Okay.
I got you so fast. Yeah, no worries. So just recently opened. I was there, I think it was the day or the day after it opened. I went to Uni Girl. It is it's on 50 right by Little Saigon. And it is right next to a new Chinese food spot, which is also delicious, called Kai Kai. And it is onigiri here in Central Florida. They're pretty reasonably priced, and they sell out almost every day, and they are delicious. If you have the opportunity, check out Uni Girl. They're incredible. What about you, Adam?
I'm going to go with a classic Orlando staple. Tortas El Rey.
Ooh.
Hit up, it's an old Checkers. Hit up the drive-thru. Get yourself a torta. Get yourself a quesadilla. Anything you get, their El Pastor tacos are phenomenal. You will not be disappointed. And who knows, maybe if you join us for an Orlando Magic tailgate, Eduardo's going to bring some onigiri.
Ooh.
I'm going to have some tortas grilled up. And we can celebrate the Orlando Magic together.
Hell yeah. That's going to do it for this episode of Central Florida Sportscast. I'm Eduardo.
And I'm Adam.
We'll see you later.